So welcome, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody.
Hello! We're going to get started!
Those were the dulcet tones of my colleague, Chantel. I'd like to welcome everyone to our All Councils meeting on June 23, 2023, and I'm really glad that the podium isn't any higher than it is. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. What I have learned from Indigenous people with whom I have worked is that our relationship to the land should be one of stewardship, not ownership, and I'm honored to make this journey with them. I also want to acknowledge that today is the anniversary of the bombing of Air India Flight 182, and it's commemorated across Canada as National Day of Remembrance of Victims of Terrorism. I know I speak for all of us when I say we mourn the lives lost and impacted due to the acts of terrorism and reaffirm our collective commitment to peace, safety, and inclusion. So it is great to see so many familiar faces in person. I know some colleagues are joining us online. Can I just see a show of hands? How many people have not been in this chamber before? So a few. So I want to say welcome very much. We're really pleased to have you here. This is a semi-annual event, and it's a wonderful opportunity to hear from other local organizations on the great work that they do that affects all 8 of our municipalities. As you can see, we're a bit less formal today. I will introduce our speakers, but leave it to them to answer questions. And if they run out of time, I would suggest that all of our speakers today are quite accessible and can either be contacted directly, or we could send questions through our clerks via email to them. The first segment is in Reinventing the Future, and I would like to invite Tony Lamantia, President and CEO of Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, to the podium for his presentation on Reinventing the Future. Welcome, Tony.
All right, I guess I'm on. Folks can hear me? All right, so I'm definitely going to need my driving glasses for this. And this is very cool. Like, I feel like I'm swimming in a sea of elected official awesomeness here, so it's quite something. So speaking of driving, why don't I get going? So I have been the inaugural CEO and now the CEO of the Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation for almost 7 3/4 years. So it's been quite a run. The last 7.5+ years have gone by like 5 minutes, and I've aged 10 years. That's kind of how I feel. We're the first point of contact for companies wanting to locate into, relocate, or expand into the region. We work really closely with our economic development partners across the 3 cities and 4 townships, and with the federal and provincial government. At the onset, we wanted to ensure that we built a collaboration blueprint that was focused on, clarity for stakeholders and, more importantly, for clients around the world. The who does what piece was something we spent quite a bit of time on. And, we work very closely, for instance, with our local economic development partners on retention, especially the subsidiaries of multinationals. So when there's a major expansion and there's a global competition, we often, go to headquarters to do the pitch. And we work with our local partners to help sell the proposition. And that matters because in this day and age, when there's a major expansion in Kitchener or Cambridge or Waterloo, you don't send an email of thanks. You've got to go to headquarters and sell the region and the future. Over the last 7.5 years, we've had quite a bit of impact. We were set up as a sales-focused investment practice, and that means there's a lot of discipline around the funnel. We rarely get involved in just straight investment marketing. We're looking for opportunities that are qualified. So that means you can describe the project, there's a timeline, and there's a budget. And there's a reason. We're a team of 13 individuals and a couple of co-ops, so we really have to pick and choose our spots. So test number one. So 2022, relatively strong year. 16 deals valued at $188 million. What's interesting about that, the story there is, if you look at the last 7.5 years, we averaged around 12 a year, but actually a higher amount in investment. And what we're starting to see is the impact of not having enough of an inventory of shovel-ready lands, right? The deals are smaller, they're concentrated in tech. So that's part of the story, but overall, it was quite something for us to hit that number because we had a really slow start. About 70% of our total number came in after September of last year. I think and that coincides with decision makers being accustomed to what was happening with the invasion of Ukraine. The world didn't end. And so what happens is investment decisions are deferred. So some of the notable wins include, let's talk about Odyssey Interactive. So this region has wanted to attract a game studio for a number of years. We have companies like Electronic Arts in Kitchener that do kind of the back end for interactive digital media. The beauty about Odyssey Interactive, and they're located in the city of Waterloo, is that it's a team that came from Riot Games. Now, I'm not a gamer, but I remember, talking to my son-in-law about it, and he was like, Riot Games, League of Legends, like really, really cool, and they're going to be doing great things. They just have done 2 major financings, and they released a new game called Omega Strikers. For the life of me, I don't know what it is, but I can tell you we had about 130 high school students from Jane and Finch at the hub, and they treated this individual like a rock star. They wanted his autograph, and I'm kind of laying it on thick, but what's really important, the takeaway here is that in another life, when I was at the province as the Assistant Deputy Minister for Investment, when we attracted Ubisoft, the partnership with Sheridan College was really important, and we needed a major name to build out that sector. Now that Odyssey's here, and we're doing some work with Conestoga College, I'm really excited about the future of interactive digital media in the region. And some of the wins in 2022 were companies that invested a number of years ago, like Bosch, Racer Machinery in Cambridge. And there's a couple of brand names there, like Constant Contact and Lighted, which is a Siemens subsidiary. So these are like very notable companies. And I'm going to talk about 2 for about 2 minutes. So EPAM is a large engineering services company headquartered in the United States. It trades on the New York Stock Exchange, 54,000 employees, 14,000 of whom reside in Ukraine. So this was a corporate relocation. They looked across Canada, selected Waterloo region. They ended up at 305 King Street on Kitchener. And what's, apart from the, kind of the story of moving talent here, what's wonderful is that we worked with EPAM on, social giving. So they got actively involved in supporting Launch Waterloo. They donated notebook computers to, Ukrainian families, not just the refugees, but all the families. And they continue to do wonderful things and want to be a key part of the ecosystem. So that's an example of foreign direct investment. It's an example of global affecting local, and I'm going to touch on that again. And it's an example of community brand and social giving. So it's a great story. And then the other one that I'm really happy about and proud of is Huron Digital Pathology in Woolwich. Their technology, they're advanced manufacturers that are making the diagnostics of cancer and a range of other things faster and more effective, right? And that's really important. And this work is being done in the township. So great story. We wrote letters of support for the Southwestern Ontario Development Fund to actually make it happen. We launched a new website, second one in the 7.5 years. Really good third-party validation, 7 awards. We got a platinum award, and the only other company in the region to get an award for the new website that in the same category was Manulife. So when a team of 13 people can scrounge up a couple $100,000 with federal and provincial support and win those types of awards, it's a beautiful thing. Lead generation is our focus. Again, we're very disciplined. We don't just do investment marketing. we're looking for opportunities where there's a specific project that, it can be defined, and then we can look for a match, and then a timeline and a budget. So lots of traction in the United States, a lot of traction in Europe, and I think that's a testimony to what's happening globally. So this is a really important slide because it lays out the results over 7 years, so from 2016 to the end of 2022. And what I want to point out is, I was talking about the need for shovel-ready lands. So let's start with Cambridge. So even though Cambridge only had about 16% of the number of wins, that actually amounted to 35% of the value of the investment, which includes job and capital investment. Contrast that with Kitchener, who actually had a higher number of wins, 40%, but in terms of the actual investment dollars, 36%. So that is sort of indicating to us that, manufacturing investment really matters, and that the tech ecosystem, as much as it's a globally significant system that we have with a number of anchor companies and institutions, that there's some work for us to do on shovel-ready lands. And, I was talking to council Wednesday night on that, and I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction. In terms of total impact, the feds like us to do this stuff, which demonstrates GDP impact, but, we've delivered in excess of $1.5 billion in GDP impact, over 12,500 jobs, and that's based on direct input and output model on the deals that have been verified and what comes back from StatsCan. This year is starting off fairly well. As at June 14th, which is last week, 5 deals valued at just under $50 million. The forecast is pretty healthy, so I'm excited about kind of where we're headed. So let's look forward. How are we going to support economic prosperity for Waterloo region? So let's start with that. We are now in what I would characterize as a manufacturing investment super cycle. Don't know how long it's going to last, but there are more major manufacturing investments looking for places to land in North America than at any point in history. Okay, so we're at a key juncture. And the reasons are, you can see part of the reasons up there, but essentially the global supply chains, trade relationships are realigning, and that means companies are, making long-term bets on North America and Europe, and that's why there has been a steady flow of real interest from multinationals on shovel-ready land for major new investments. So that's kind of where we are in terms of supply chains. Our goals are, built around what's helped us be successful in the past, but we're going to have to reinvent how we do things. So first, we're striving for resilience, critically important. We want to transform the future of the region with a major manufacturing investment in our rural and peri-urban communities, because that's really the only place where we can do it. Continue to promote our unique value proposition, and it is unique. The number of RFIs that we've received as an organization is almost impossible to keep up with. And in many cases, even when we actually haven't had a shovel-ready site selectors and companies have actually said, well, if we delayed the project by 6 months, would you be ready for us, right? And that is a testimony to how much people want to be in Waterloo region. We're really uniquely located. We've got to strengthen our emerging business clusters, absolutely, and we have to continue to show strong leadership on social justice and equity, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. So what are the challenges? Well, no surprise, I was talking about this Wednesday night as a delegate. We lost a number of advanced manufacturing opportunities, and we risk the loss of local anchor companies if they can't expand in the region, right? And so we need an inventory of, mid to mega-sized shovel-ready industrial land in the region. We're working on it, and that's terrific. The fact that we've got high industrial diversification indicates to most folks who are looking at it is that we're fairly resilient to economic shocks, but we got to maintain a strong manufacturing base and a strong tech sector. And, and if we do, we'll continue to thrive on the other side of any slowdown, which is in the category of impossible to predict. Talent is, if you talk to any CEO, any HR recruiter, the biggest challenge is talent across the board. Skilled trades, lower skilled trades, and advanced trades, specialty welders, you name it, lathe operators, machinists. Those are in very high demand. We've got some work to do. And, as much as I go to council and talk about the results, you folks as elected officials will often hear about, those social inequities that, land in your communities, whether it's encampments or other challenges. And so we can't, so this is a very active conversation, and it's not as if anybody can say, well, it's not our job, it's not our mandate. We got to figure out a way to support these challenges, and more importantly, number one, see if we can raise the median income of people in Waterloo region. I mean, that's important. And then secondly, work with existing anchor companies and new companies to get involved and donate with significant, grants to the Community Foundation, United Way of Waterloo Region, a range of other things that we can do to actually demonstrate that they're building their brand and they're interested in being in our community. One of the things I like least about the job is going cap in hand to federal, provincial, and municipal partners, but, we are funded by 3 levels of government, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Our MOU expires the end of this year. Our goal is to have that nailed down. We have conditional support from our municipal partners, which is terrific. We're going to have to go to 8 councils later this year, and I look forward to those conversations. We're one of the challenges is the region has been so successful in attracting provincial and federal support that we often, we've recently been hearing, well, Waterloo region gets so much money for Perimeter Institute and Communitech and for, the Accelerator Center, you folks too aren't, isn't it enough? And so you can never take that for granted. You have to demonstrate impact on the projects. You have to demonstrate a need. In other words, is there a gap that you're filling in the community that would otherwise go unaddressed? And the return on investment has been quite significant. If you look at the numbers, for every dollar put just by the municipal partners, it's returned 114x. And so I think based on that, and I'll open it up to questions soon, we are going to unveil a new strategic plan in the weeks ahead. The things that we're going to continue to do include, leading global investment attraction into the region. What's the opportunity there? Well, we're going to focus urgently on mega site development to land a transformative elephant-sized deal. Support foreign-owned local business expansion. Well, that's all about small and medium-sized employment lands, and there's a lot of work going on that front, which is terrific. We want to organize investor relations and mayor's missions where appropriate. Again, I reinforce the fact that when a company puts hundreds of millions or billions into your community, you really have to build a relationship. And in some cultures, I'd say in most cultures, you've got to go to headquarters and say, thank you. What are your issues? What can we do to help grow? It's not, you can't send a letter or send an email. So that's critically important in our business. And as far as the RFIs that come in and the work that we're doing on immigration, we need to make sure that our federal immigration policies actually support our companies. So when I was at the province, we started an investor stream for temporary foreign workers. What does that mean? Essentially that if Ubisoft landed in the province and they wanted to bring some people in from France, we thought, well, why would we have to go through a very rigorous process? So that stream that we started in Ontario eventually became the global talent stream that was launched about 5 years ago. Waterloo EDC is a referral partner for that. So, any company that has an issue, we can get them a client account manager and assist. Even so, it's been slow and painful the last year and a half, largely because of COVID, but also because we need skilled trades almost as badly as we do data scientists, almost as badly as we do software engineers. We actually need, welders. And so I actually have a call, and it's part of an ongoing advocacy effort with Christiane Fox, the deputy at IRCC, on Monday of next week to discuss how do we open up the immigration and global talent stream so we can actually get some skilled workers that are desperately needed in our manufacturing community. So, IRCC's got to get better. Talent matters. We need an inventory of shovel-ready sites. We're resilient, so I think we'll be able to withstand any significant slowdown. Things like quality of life, inflation, that's why median incomes have to go up, and so we have to make sure that our companies are investing in innovation and moving towards higher margin, higher value-added production. We recently did a manufacturing summit and showcased what PWO was doing to the community, and we need more companies that, let's say, start off doing stamping or tool and die, and then move up to engineering design and go from tier 3 to tier 1 supply status. That's really important for us. And, commercial space utilization, that's an issue in the downtown cores. Certainly, we have some work to do with in the city of Kitchener and in the city of Waterloo. But I would say overall, given kind of what's happening in North America, we're sitting pretty well. I'm not going to pretend and say, start singing "We're in the money," but you'll forgive me if I smile with confidence. We're doing well, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done, especially on those fronts. Thank you to everyone for your ongoing support. That's essentially the happy team with our 2 co-ops, and open to taking any questions. Thank you.
Just a comment, Tony?
Sure.
He talks at a high level, and that's okay. But so a business, let's say a business wants to come to your community. We get the staff to contact Tony, and Tony's team steps in. He walks them through the process. He makes sure the company's got everything they need. He works with upper levels of government, his team does, to make sure they have it. And North Dumfries has done very well by what Tony's team has done. And we've had millions and millions of dollars of investments come into our community because of Tony's team. And we really appreciate him. And I mean, the connections that he's got, but the energy his staff have. And all that legwork, you get, if any of you worked with planning, it's a lot of legwork, a lot of paperwork, a lot of trying to convince people. He handles that. His team handles that, gets you through it. And he does an amazing job. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you for the kind words. You reminded me, I've been remiss. So we submitted our FedDev application today. So we're really excited about that. And the focus of our project is rural and peri-urban investment readiness. As part of what's happening with this global manufacturing investment super cycle, our rural townships, for the most part, don't have a lot of capacity to be investment ready. And so there's a lot of work we need to do on that front. I'm really excited about it, and I want to thank the mayors and the regional chair for the letter of support that we included in that package that went in. I think it's, for a community of our size, we need to be looking outward as far as what major investments we want, but more importantly, because there's just not a lot of industrial land, and so the townships going forward in our rural and peri-urban environments are going to be critically important. And I sure hope Minister Tassi and the federal government smile on it, but we could certainly use your support at a key juncture. So enough on that.
Thank you, Tony. Sue's already given you a lot of accolades, so I won't say anything more other than Waterloo Region has definitely benefited from the great work that Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation has done. So my question is more related to the overall market. We're really competing at a global stage, competing with markets that have very different ways of incentivizing businesses to come there. And whereas in Canada, especially in Ontario, we're kind of, I guess, constrained with the Municipal Act.
Yeah.
Where do you see some advocacy from our local councils with the province so that we have greater leeway? And more, the second question is, where do you see that more that we can do to enhance the work that Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation does? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Singh. I'm going to answer the second question first. Your as an elected official responsible for your community in Kitchener, lead generation, right? The companies in your region, in your riding that, may have opportunities to expand or may be challenged, or even through your own network, right? If there is, through your broader North American global network, an opportunity where we can help qualify an investment and help it land, just please refer that lead to us. So that's where you can help. You're ambassadors for the region, whether you're active on that front or not. So, just keep that in mind. Incentives are, I've been in this game for a long time, maybe too long. And no incentive has ever made a bad investment proposition a good one, in my view. And we got to be careful not to get involved in the race to zero, which happens in a lot of U.S. states where there are reckless incentives, jobs being paid for, capital incentives. You literally have companies moving from one state border to the other, right? And kind of net zero, not a benefit. We have, anti-bonusing legislation in the Municipal Act, which really limits what municipal governments can do. There's some creative ways around it. You can set up municipal development corporations. It's not really enforced, but I would say that on the incentives front, we're actually starting to see, and this is a testimony to the unique juncture we're at historically. You talked about the global environment. So federal government's matching the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. That is in the category of never expected it, but it underscores how important these major capital investments are. Volkswagen coming to St. Thomas is not a 5 or 10 year it's a multi-generational proposition. Their supply chain park is 12 million square feet. Like, chew on that, right? Like, you're talking about bringing in global suppliers. So the feds are playing. The province, ideologically, I was nicely surprised that the Ford government and Vic Fidele they're right there, they're doing their part. So, I think the most important thing that municipalities can do, you've got the brownfield programs, you've got a range of other things that you can do. Just keep an investment-friendly business environment, processing, right? Permitting, all of the things, that getting a site shovel-ready takes a lot of time. You've got to look at species at risk, archaeological, you name it, you've got to do it. Environmental impact, that's part of it. It's a really important part of it these days. And so the more business-friendly the processes are, the more likely the word gets around. So case in point, the leader of EPAM in Ohio went out of his way to say that he was stunned at how quickly Kitchener turned around the permitting. It was incredible. They remember that. Decision makers remember that. Word gets around. So just keep your units across, the municipal government. So not just in your economic development, but in your planning and permitting, and just keep them business friendly. Talk to the client, and try to look for win-wins. So I think that's really where municipal governments can help us.
Hi, Tony. I'm Scott David, City Kitchener. Sorry, first of all, thank you for your presentation and your continued excellent results. Really appreciate it. I'm going to ask you, I hate to drop this one on you, but I honestly can't think of a better time or better place to ask the elephant in the room, and that is there's regional reform and amalgamation discussions going on. The politicians are frankly all over the map in terms of their preference, but I think it's really important for you to weigh in purely from your expertise as an economic development professional on what you see the challenges or pros are in these discussions.
Okay. Am I allowed to say that I don't comment on rumors or speculation? I think what clients want isn't complicated. They want a single point of contact for the project. They want speed and ease. Those are the two words that come to mind. They want speed with, getting the site ready so it's actually ready to build, and they want ease. They don't want a complex environment. Now, is amalgamation a silver bullet? I'm not sure, honestly. There are some amalgamated communities. I'm remembering my ADM hat when I was at the province. not investment friendly. I'm not going to name names, just, part of it was the elected officials, part of it was the community, right? So I think that, it's always useful to look at governance, right? We're a different community than we were, even 8 years ago, honestly, and definitely, very different than 50 or 100 years ago. So, review of governance always makes a lot of sense, but let's not get too caught up in kind of these magic bullets like amalgamation, because they're, they can paralyze governance for a long, long time, and that would be worse than actually looking for, a system that works. And then the last thing I'll say, I genuinely believe this: if we put as much importance and emphasis on people as we did on systems and governance, we'd be in a better place. Right? We just got to make sure that the people leading the community continue to provide inspired leadership, and we'll figure it out. Okay.
Anyone? Oh. I'm going to go with 2 questions.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what we can expect in the green tech sector. I'd like to see us have more opportunities. I think our neighbors to the south are investing a lot of money into this, and I think, I would like to hear about the opportunities that are there. And I'm also hearing from folks that housing is a big barrier for attracting staff to the area when they can't afford a place to live. It's a real negative in our region in terms of retention of staff and recruitment of good talent. And so, I don't know if you could speak to those 2 bits.
Yeah, so definitely on the kind of housing, both affordability and supply, critically important. Provincial government's basically, doing a full court press. These projects have to be permitted, approved quickly, and that apparently is what's driving the, regional review for the most part. If you believe the kind of the rationale, that's what's driving it. I would agree it's an issue, and if this community is going to grow with the immigration forecast, we really need to make sure that it's a top priority. So every municipal government here has to make it like job one, because it is a challenge, and it's not just finding, a place to live that's affordable, but also finding a doctor, finding, daycare. These are all, one of the things that blew my mind, and it gets blown once in a while, but it blew my mind recently on a large, multi-billion-dollar global search. The only key follow-up items were doctors and daycare. It was the most important item for this global company, because they couldn't move any of their senior people to lead the project unless they had, certainty about that. So definitely important. It's not, there's a lot of work to do on that, and that's like a bottle of wine conversation. But on your first point, we're really excited. Our pipeline for clean tech companies has never been more full, honestly, and it's in large part because federal government incentives, but also provincial incentives on capital investments. So, in heating and cooling, and, companies like Enlighted, which is a Siemens subsidiary that is, they're at Catalyst. They're doing some wonderful things as far as, reducing energy consumption. And then, obviously, the EV supply chain, right? That, if you're starting to see the major automakers make significant commitments to getting away from gasoline, and it can't come, too soon. Some folks know that my car was stolen a couple of weeks ago, and so my next car has got to be a hybrid, right? Like I don't want, because these cars get stolen and exported to countries where, regular gas will do, right? And so for a bunch of reasons, heating and cooling, green, clean tech, these are all areas where we actually have a cluster that's significant in Canada. Like it's genuinely significant, and we have great places to bring prospective investors. The Evolve 1 and 2 are great stories for our region, so there's lots on that front coming. So, okay, thank you so much. Okay, all right.
I'm sorry that we ran out of time for questions. I guess I'm sort of a human version of the cane and pulling people off. Tony, thank you very much for such a comprehensive overview and for fielding all of those questions. And if anybody has further questions, just know you can ask Tony directly or email him, and I'm sure he'll have answers for all of them. So Tony, you and your team, I know you highlighted them at the end, you're all really hardworking, and I want to thank you for that. I now want to invite Michelle Sarin, CEO of Explore Waterloo Region, to the podium for her presentation on the state of tourism in our community. And Michelle, as you come up, I just want to say we cannot underestimate the impact tourism has on our economy. So welcome, we look forward to your presentation.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always tough to go after my buddy Tony. He always does a great job. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Michelle Saran, CEO of Explore Waterloo Region. I moved here, oh gosh, I guess it was a little over a year ago from Nova Scotia, and it's gone by very fast. Prior to this, I was the CEO of the Provincial Crown Tourism in Nova Scotia, and before that, I spent 17 years at the federal level at Destination Canada. I have to say the past year at Explore Waterloo Region, it's been a busy one. Our industry's been recovering and rebuilding, and we've been rebuilding our entire organization as well. I think if there was any silver lining to COVID, people got to see what a world would look like without tourism. What it would look like without restaurants, without hotels, without attractions. And I think finally tourism is being seen for what it is, which is economic development. People need to realize that the tourism brand is a powerful thing. People might come to our region for the first time because they want to take a vacation, but they like what they see when they come here, and they might choose to move here, send their kids to school here, or invest here. So a very powerful thing if we leverage it properly. So I always like to start presentations with what the region was like prior to COVID. And the last real year we had prior to COVID was 2019. So in a normal year, we got about 5 million visitors to the region. And when I say visitors, that's both same day and overnight visitors. Now, the vast majority of people are coming here, they're staying just for the day and then they're going home. 58% of the people that are coming to visit their friends and relatives. And you can see the rest of the breakdown. So we've got 16% coming for business, 12% for pleasure, 7% for shopping, and 5% for other. And when we say other, that's things like if you're coming for a medical appointment or something like that. And I think it's probably going to be no surprise, 96% of the people that are coming from the GTA. When I saw this data when I moved here, the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, we got to increase overnight stays, because the longer people travel to come to a place, the longer they stay, the more they spend. So great opportunity for experience and product development, which is what we're working on. Now, the data we work with at Explore Waterloo Region comes from StatsCan. And unfortunately, like many industries, there's an 18-month time lag with when we get it, so not so good for us. However, we do have a proxy that we use, and that's occupancy data. And all indications from our occupancy data show that we are doing very well. We're recovering from COVID very well. In 2022, our occupancy rate was 40% higher than 2021, and our revenue was 80% higher. So you can see we're doing quite well. And anecdotally, we've heard from all of our festivals and events that they either beat or met 2019 numbers. Now, this is hard to see, especially with these little screens, but I wanted to give you a sense of 2023. We're in a very good place in regard to recovery right now. In March, we even beat 2018 and 2019. We took a little bit of a hit in April, and that's for the simple reason we didn't host the Ontario Volleyball Championships that year. It's funny how one little thing can have such a big impact on occupancy. Now, like most industries coming out of COVID, our recovery is fragile and susceptible to risks, like all the ones that are indicated on here. But I would say for tourism, the biggest one, our biggest challenge is labor. Hospitality workers left our industry in droves during the pandemic, and the challenge is they never came back. And this is affecting things like the hours restaurants can be open, the service you get at a hotel or a retail establishment. And the real challenge here is what the damage this can present to a brand. That's our big concern. So the industry advocacy organizations in our industry, they are going out and starting right at the beginning, going into like high schools and trying to inspire young people to consider a career in hospitality and tourism. It's not all low-paid jobs, flipping burgers or anything like that. You can work your way up to a C-suite, you can travel, you can see the world. So we're trying to paint a different picture of the industry as a whole. And we're also on the federal side working with the Department of Immigration, trying to entice people that want to work in the tourism industry to consider Canada, to move here by demonstrating a path to permanent residency for them. So we're looking at this on a number of places. We have to remember that places that are great for tourists to live, visit are great places for residents to live. And we have to have a great service sector to be a world-class place to be. So Explore Waterloo Region, our organization was founded 16 years ago. It's a membership organization, and it was put together by representatives from the region, 3 cities, and 4 townships. We're a nonprofit. We're responsible for marketing and product development, and we pursue leisure visitations, sport hosting, and business event opportunities. So you can see by our mission and vision here, the one thing I do want to point out is our recent edit to our mission. We recently changed our focus from driving visitation to increasing revenue. And that's in an effort simply to be more sustainable. It's about attracting the right visitor that's going to like the product that we have here. It's about yield versus mass market visitation. Now, we always get questions about our budget, so here we are, full transparency. I wanted to show you all our sources today. We do receive annual grants from the cities, townships, and regions to the tune of $600,000, which we use for overhead expenses. And then the municipal accommodation tax, which has been a complete and utter game changer for us. We receive half of that at Explore Waterloo Region. The other half goes 40% to the cities and townships and 10% to the region itself. This has really been the first year that we've had the MAT starting to flow. At the end of 2022, we had brought in $2.6 million overall, again, which we receive half, and the cities and townships receive the rest in the region. We occasionally get ad hoc grants from entities like FedDev. We were lucky enough to receive one last year. And RTO4 gives us an annual grant of $100,000 to support our sport hosting office. Again, back to the MAT, 85% of those funds we receive from the MAT go to things like sales, marketing, research, content creation, and we're allowed to use up to 15% for overhead-related expenses. So last year was really flat out for our organization. We had to hire 50% of our staff. They're all brand new, and train them. And I'll go into these programs to highlight the following slides a little bit. We're doing annual member and stakeholder surveys now, and I'm really proud to say that we received an 85% satisfaction rating in our survey last year. And coming out of COVID and being a brand new organization, really with all new people, we're quite proud of that. So as I said, 2022, crazy busy year for us coming out of the pandemic, and now we're full speed ahead. And so on the next couple slides, I'm going to get into our priorities. Now, we started building our tourism master plan last year with a consultant called Floor 13. We interviewed over 150 people, and from groups to individuals, tourism stakeholders to economic development to elected officials. We identified the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of our region. We looked at industry trends, identified stakeholders, and who owns what role in an effort to reduce redundancy. What this is a roadmap to 2030. It's not tactical. It's a 30,000-foot view that everyone that's a stakeholder in tourism should be able to see themselves in. So if you're creating your own strategy, you can plug it into this roadmap, and then we can ensure that we have alignment and we're all rowing in the same direction. Explore Waterloo Region doesn't own every initiative in this document, but we'll shepherd it along, we'll report on the process, and we're creating a dashboard that will live on our website. I hope you all follow us on our social channels. If yes, you would have seen our first fully integrated campaign that went out this past year. Given that our target audience is the GTA, we really wanted to own the concept of the road trip. So we used different fun mashups of lists that encourage people to get set and get stoked about coming to Waterloo Region. And we also integrated it with our partner information. So it was kind of like a wrapper around things like Oktoberfest and the 170th birthday of St. Jacob's and all of the holiday things that go on in the region. The campaign did so well that Bell Media is now using it as a best practice. 77% said it made them excited to visit the region, 75% said they learned something new, and 77% said they're now very interested in coming to the region. We used this in elevator ads in condos in Toronto. We did some print publication also for condo dwellers that wanted to get out and about. And we did some out of home, which are like the big billboards you see in the cities as well. This year, we're going to be doing a full brand audit to make sure that what we're doing is resonating with our target markets and is taking on our competitors well. Now, one of the big projects our marketing team's been working on this year is the creation of an ambassador program. And so we've been working hard to identify really notable people that live in the region in the areas of sport, business, and academia to answer the question, why Waterloo? Why the Waterloo region? And what we want to do is use these video testimonials for things like bids when we're going after sporting groups, when we're going after meetings and conventions. We want to use this content on our social channels. I think you all recognize Malcolm Gladwell. When I moved here a year ago, I had no idea he was from the region, and he's a great ambassador. So we'll show you our little video now.
So we moved to Elmira when I was 6 years old. Many of my fondest memories of growing up are running related. I joined the Kitchener-Waterloo Track Club, and we used to train at the old Kitchener Auditorium. The thing I always remembered is that every cross-country race would be at a different conservation area. It's runner's paradise around here. I don't know whether non-runners realize this, but there had been some thought when this region was being populated about what were the green spaces that were going to be set aside. And that's unusual, you know. Go to Florida or Texas, there's no conservation areas every, 10 miles. The people aren't thinking that way. It really does seem like you could live in Waterloo and you wouldn't need to have a car anymore. Those are very kind of prosaic things, but they make a big difference. 20 years ago when you talked about sustainability, people in business thought of it as an obligation, something that would eat into their profits, that was a kind of necessary evil. But now they're realizing that in fact it's consistent with their business mission. A more efficient operation is a more profitable operation, a more productive operation, an operation that has more time to do the kind of things it wants to do. That shift in thinking that's been the most encouraging thing about people's, in the world of business, their attitudes over the last 10 years. When I say that I'm from Waterloo Region, particularly if I'm in any kind of tech area, people know where I'm from. I was talking to some guy who runs a super high-tech little startup in San Francisco. He asked me where I was from. I said I grew up in Waterloo, and he said the same thing they always say, which is, oh, we have a bunch of engineers from University of Waterloo who work for us. It's Caltech, it's MIT, it's Stanford, and it's Waterloo. That's where the brains come from.
Don't you love that? That's where the brains come from. This is part of, thank you. This is part of our, it's part of our a series that we're doing, and actually our own Mayor Dorothy McCabe's going to be starring one of them on sustainability. So we're creating a whole library to use for these. So I'm really proud of the Vanguard collection. So in terms of business events, another faction of what we do is the idea is to proactively pursue business where we have a perceived business advantage or we're seen as a center of excellence. So that can be in things like life sciences, fintech, agriculture, really, but for the most part, high tech and advanced manufacturing. What we want to do is expose the best and brightest in a given industry to our best and brightest. So really leverage meetings and conventions that way. And this pushes the trade agenda of the destination, and we help people like Tony do his job. We regularly seek advice of the chambers and economic development when we're putting bids together to get contacts, information about a given industry, or potential thought leaders that we can use for speaking engagements. Honestly, our biggest challenge in business events is space. We only have 3,000 hotel rooms in the region, and a lot of them are at the 3-star level, so it's not ideal to sell. We also don't have a significant amount of convention space beyond Binghamton's, also a problem. There is no accommodation either adjacent to Binghamton, so these are negatives when you're going after business events. We've been not able to bid on a number of programs already this year because we just don't have the capacity. I will say, though, I will identify one huge win that's in town right now and will be over the next 5 weekends is the Convention of Jehovah's Witnesses. We've got 28,000 members of the Watchtower group in town. They're at the Odd every single weekend, and it's injecting $16 million into the economy. So we're very proud of that win. Another one I wanted to highlight just happened was Innovate Canada. We collaborated on this with the KW Chamber and Economic Development. This is 10 to 20 advanced manufacturing C-suite individuals come together, and by day they meet with the trade contacts and the tourism contacts, and by night they live the tourism experience of the destination. We had a strong bid because we worked with the Chamber. They had their advanced manufacturing summit on, so it was a win. We had all these great companies that we could take them through and enjoy and learn about on the tours. And we already have 3 leads for future meetings and conventions as a result of this, and 2 investment opportunities for economic development. So pretty good ROI. Sport hosting, crazy busy coming out of the pandemic, and we've been part of some pretty significant bids. The 2030 Commonwealth Games, the World Junior Hockey Championships, and while we didn't win those, we were at the table and we were making an impression, and we're very proud of that. We just successfully hosted the Canadian Wrestling Championships at RIM, the Para Hockey in Elmira, Foxwoods Disc Golf in Wilmot, and the Dodgeball Championships at RIM. It's a thing, dodgeball. We focus on events where we have the facilities to accommodate. Also, and Tony touched on it, we're an emerging location for esport. I didn't even know what that was when I moved here, but now I know how beautifully aligned it is with the brand of the destination. Tech and sport combined together, and there's really only one other place in the world, Raleigh, North Carolina, apparently, that's known for this. So we can do something with this. We can create events. We can, like, it's true what Tony said. They're like celebrities, these people. People pay to watch other people play video games. It's fascinating. So incredible opportunity for us. So remember when I mentioned the opportunity to grow leisure visitation through product development? Well, we've got a program to address that. Our accelerator program came to be through our FedDev grant, and it's about creating high-yield purchasable experiences to get people motivated to come to the region. It's about getting media attention. It's not about big numbers of people. It's about the right people spending a lot of money. So we engaged in visiting sessions all throughout the region. We came up with 21 concepts that we put out to a test audience of 600 and said, hey, if we created this, would you drive to the region to do it? Would you spend the money to do it? And the ones that tested best, we went ahead and created them. So I'll give you some samples of what. We have 6 of them. Here's 2 of them that I've got to present to you today. The Indigenous-infused Grand River Experience. Now, this is cool. You take a ride on a canoe down the Grand River. It's a guided tour. You hear all about the history. You stop and you have an Indigenous-themed picnic on the way. You're staying in a luxury glamping container at Binghamton's for the night, and then you have another sumptuous dinner that's Indigenous-themed riverside. So that is available for purchase right now. And this one's coming in the fall, Dining in the Great Outdoors. Now, I hope you've all seen the Farm to Fork series on 5 TV that's hosted by our own celebrity chef, Nick Benninger. We sponsored that. So we're leveraging Nick's newfound fame, and we're doing a dinner in Shoe Orchards in Woolwich. And you have this amazing dinner that he cooks for you. There's local entertainment through the night. You get a branded tote bag. You can go and pick your apples. You get recipe cards. You get a list of all the foodie places you can go to afterward. Killer dinner. So this is going to be available for purchase in the fall. And the last part of our FedDev project was trail optimization. And a big shout out to Kevin Marshall at the region he was a huge help on this. We've done a lot of research how we could enhance this opportunity and get more people out on the trails and know us as a cycling destination. So what we did was we created, and we partnered with the region on a cycling app, and it's really cool. We take all the trails in the region, we identify what they are by level of difficulty, and then we layer on bike-friendly businesses. And in Explore Waterloo region, we've been going out working with Ontario by Bike to get more and more businesses cycling certified, so we can keep adding more and more content to that app. We're also developing cycling itineraries that are on our website. Now, tons of reasons for being a member of Explore Waterloo Region. Our membership continues to be free. We have a dedicated membership manager now, and if you get leads, you get listings, you get all kinds of great things. We amplify your content on social, but it's really about continuing to educate our members and having good brand alignment across the board. It's, I have to say that it's kind of like, joining a health club or a gym. Sadly, just by joining, you don't get a great body. It's the same thing with joining our organization. You got to get in, get to know us, work with us. We'll amplify your content, and we want to help people. And so that's my presentation today. That's Waterloo Region in a nutshell. Can I answer any questions? Or was it completely comprehensive?
Thanks, Michelle. It really was very comprehensive. Really appreciate all the work that you're doing on behalf of all of ours, and I totally get the different programs that you're promoting, and that. I'm just wondering if there's any thought to. And I'm hearkening back to my travel days when traveling and there was all kinds of low cost. I know we need more hotel capacity and all that kind of stuff, but for the younger person, like maybe just graduated or taking a gap year, is there anything to help them come to our region and not have to spend like $200 a night on a hotel and that kind of stuff? Like, I'm just wondering about again, like when I was traveling years and years ago, like there was this hostel system throughout Europe and a hostel system throughout, Australia and that kind of stuff. And it generates a lot of economic development as well. So I totally get the higher end stuff, but just wondered if there's a thought about the lower end stuff.
Any product that's in the tourism industry can have a listing on our website, and we'll amplify their content. We're also creating packages as well that are.
But I mean, there's not really, like, what do we have lower cost options here for people?
In terms of hostels,
really,
I don't believe so. To my knowledge, I'm not quite sure. We really do separate out roles, though. Like, we play in the bringing people from outside in at that higher price point, at that, for the higher yield. And we kind of leave the other stuff to the locals to pursue that type of business. But that product would all have a place on Explore Waterloo Region's website. It would all be there. But in terms of packaging, my membership managers, actually, I've challenged her to create packages at lower price points, so people that are on a budget will have some options to go out. So you're not spending like $300 for a dinner. It's packaged together at a more value, economical level.
Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question, a clarification. You mentioned some of your funding is through Airbnb. How does that model work? Is that based on people who are booking? Is there some sort of parameters around that? Thanks.
That's the municipal accommodation tax. Airbnb remits to us on a quarterly basis. They collect it, they send it to us. So it's the 4% of municipal accommodation tax.
Okay, so there was the one line for that, and then there was another line with the three. So it's all part of the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry Verbanovic from Kitchener. Thanks for all the great work that you're doing. One of the areas that you didn't talk a lot about, I mean, you talk about the nature pieces of stuff, but it's our arts and culture scene and using that as a draw. And I think both in terms of what we have locally, coupled with what's in the surrounding area, really could create a nice mix of opportunities and package some of that stuff together and, even promote a 2 or 3 day weekend in the region. Is that something you're looking at doing going forward, and how do you think we could capitalize on that more so?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's art is a personal passion of mine, and so I'm very excited about the Niebing Art Fair that's going to take place next month that we've been working on with Bingamans and a number of the First Nations artists, and we keep building on that year after year. So that's culture infused with art, it's entertainment, and we want to do more and more of that. We also have, we're working closely with the region. Helen Chamiri Russell is on our board, and they've created, using their portion of the MAT tax, a program specifically around culture where you have to be a member of Explore Waterloo Region, and we'll amplify all those cultural events that, that celebrate the arts. So we're definitely working together on that.
So thank you, Michelle, so much to you and Explore Waterloo Region and all your team for all their hard work. Malcolm Gladwell was an amazing video. I can't wait to see Dorothy's. I had no idea that she was going to become this famous. I would now like to invite Mark Pham, President, St. Mary's General Hospital, Ron Gagnon, President and CEO, Grand River Hospital, and Patrick Gaskin, President and CEO of Cambridge Memorial Hospital, to come to the podium and update us on local health care, the exceptional care their teams deliver 24/7, 365, and their plans for the future. So welcome, gentlemen.
Okay, great. I'm Ron Gagnon. I'm the President and CEO at Grand River Hospital, and I'm going to start off, and then Patrick and Tim and I are going to share this presentation. So much like we do every day in operating the hospitals, we're going to do this presentation together. So the first thing that I'll go to is just to give you a sense of your 3 hospitals in this region. And combined, we have just over 8,000 people working at our organizations. Our combined budget is just under $1 billion between all of us, and we have over 1,000 beds between us as well in serving this region. The other thing that I would point out is all 3 hospitals have received accreditation with exemplary standing from Accreditation Canada, who accredits healthcare organizations across the world, not just in Canada. It's the highest standing you can receive, and all 3 hospitals have that standing. Between us, today we serve about 1.4 million people, and that is largely because of the numerous regional programs that we currently provide, whether it's cancer, cardiac, ophthalmology, et cetera. And what we know is over the course of the next 30 years, or the next 20 years, sorry, that's going to grow to well over 2 million people. This region, as I'm sure you all know, is one of the fastest growing in the country, and that's predicted to continue to accelerate as we move forward. And so we're getting ready for, how are we going to be able to serve that growing population with diverse needs? This slide consists of a summary of the strategic plans of the 3 organizations. And the reason we're using it is to show you the common commitment of the 3 organizations to health and a healthier community, to the community itself, and to innovation. And we see that, I'm quite gratified. I've been here since November 2018. What attracted me to this region was the spirit of innovation and the spirit of collaboration, and I have experienced that in spades in my time here, and I've been quite grateful for it. So every day we are working together, whether that's making sure the way we've rationalized services between the 3 organizations to make sure people get the right care in the right place, whether it's utilizing all of our diagnostic imaging capacities, so CT scans as an example, to make sure people can go to where there's the shortest wait time, whether it's using some of our capacity to support, so Cambridge is doing a redevelopment of their rehab section of their hospital now, so we moved some of those beds to the Freeport campus to allow that work to happen before they move back to the Cambridge site. And it is a real spirit of how the three organizations support one region, not how we are three brands, not how we are more concerned with each of our own organizations. We're more concerned with the region that we serve and the municipalities within it and beyond. And I think that we've demonstrated that in the partnerships that we've been forming, whether it's the two Ontario health teams, one in Cambridge North Dumfries, the other one in the KW4 area, or whether it's the partnerships that we've been creating both at the urban level and at the rural level of our region to improve the delivery of care and to expand services in our region. And I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the pandemic. I think very familiar to all of you was the work that three hospitals did together. I think you would have been tested to see if one person at the vaccine center, who they worked for. Was it the region? Was it Grand River? Was it Cambridge? Was it St. Mary's? And if you asked them, they would have said, we work for the region. And that they meant the people of this region. And that's the spirit that we've been building. And that's the spirit that we will continue to build across the three hospitals. We also collectively work together as a shared voice when we advocate with government, whether that's around the need for increased bed capacity, to better address the funding needs of this community, health human resources, and collaborating on strategies around that. We are one voice and strongly committed to each other and the success of the region. And the other one that's on here that is another good example is the joint response to a supply chain issue. We heard about supply chain challenges earlier. Well, the three hospitals working together found a way to get through that epidural shortage, and many of you probably didn't hear about it because of the great work that was done between the three hospitals. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, who is he gets the easy work. He gets to talk about the challenges when it comes to healthcare.
That's what I was saying. Thanks, Ron. Chair Redmond, your worships, councillors, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. Ron has highlighted how well we work together as hospitals and with our community partners, but there's some challenges within the healthcare system that we wanted to highlight. We have some old hospitals and hospital sites in this region. Yesterday, my mom turned 96. In 1948, when she was 21 and working at what used to be called the KW Hospital, the new ABC wing opened. I'll do the math for you. That was 75 years ago, and that wing is still in active service at Grand River Hospital today. The issues of an aging infrastructure play out at St. Mary's too. And you're well aware of the challenges of both an aging and increasing population. The needs of the regions, the city, and the township have to respond. Well, your hospital system has to respond too. And as Ron said, let's add in a COVID-19 pandemic to the pot, and now our community is experiencing a backlog in surgical and diagnostic procedures, and we're seeing a shortage in staffing across the healthcare system. We showed you some bed per population data when we met with you back in 2019, and the situation has not improved. Actually, it's got worse. Waterloo Wellington, as a region, does not have sufficient inpatient capacity today. To bring Waterloo region up to the Ontario average requires an investment of over 250 acute care beds right now as of today. So what are the implications of not having enough acute care beds? Many patients experience longer waiting times in the emergency department, whether you're waiting for an inpatient bed or not. For some of the hospitals, we essentially are operating another inpatient unit embedded within the hospital. And on any given day, there are 43 patients in Waterloo, Wellington waiting for an inpatient bed in the emergency department. On the graph on the left side is showing kind of proportionally the number of inpatient beds or the number of patients in the emergency department that are requiring beds. The bars are our capacity that the bars are the actual operating, and the right-hand vertical line is showing our capacity. So you can see that 4 of the 6 hospitals, including all 3 in Waterloo Region, are operating at above their design capacity, usually on a day-to-day basis. As a side note, you may wonder why CMH is operating above its design capacity already. And we were sized based on a master plan and assumptions that were made nearly a decade ago before we opened. And given the delays in our project, our ED volume in our old space was almost as high as our planned expansion. So today we're here to really advocate for a strong hospital system. And we need a strong healthcare system to support businesses looking to relocate or to expand within the region. We need a system that provides connected and convenient care. And the hospitals here today are active partners with their Ontario health teams working on the goal to advance integrated care for our patients. Our partnerships with the university, colleges, the tech and manufacturing sectors are strong and growing, enabling us to deepen innovation and research in the hospital sector. And collectively, we're advancing the opportunities for growth, expansion to meet the needs of our community in spite of much of the constraint that you see today. Collectively, we're working, though, to grow our services and expand our services and meet the needs of our community in spite of some of those limitations. Much of the work that you see on the screen here in terms of areas of opportunity that we are exploring, each of the hospitals, are foundational to the work that Grand River Hospital and St. Mary's are doing in the planning process. So with that, I will pass the podium over to Tim Rowlands, the Vice Chair at St. Mary's General Hospital.
Thank you, Patrick. And yes, I am not Mark Pham. Mark is the president of St. Mary's and apologizes for not being here today. He is out of the country. So Patrick, you've had the opportunity to speak to the challenges. I am, with Ron coming up later, get to talk about the future. And the 3 hospitals, as Ron has talked about, collaborate on a regular and ongoing basis. And together, we're building the future of care. And so I'm going to refer to this as the BFCT, because trying to say building the future of care together is very difficult, and I've been actively involved with it for the past year and a half. But through BFCT, what are we trying to accomplish? BFCT is effectively the joint master plan proposal for hospital development for the Ministry of Health in Ontario. Phase 1 was Cambridge Memorial's long and drawn-out hospital redevelopment in the region. That was phase 1. Phase 2 has just started in the past 18 to 24 months, and it's being led by Grand River and St. Mary's. And we're leading phase 2 right now for the renewed hospital infrastructure for the region of Waterloo and Kitchener-Waterloo. The proposal was jointly developed by Grand River and St. Mary's in partnership with Cambridge and the KW4 OHT. This proposal includes 3 sites. The first site will be a brand new acute care facility that's well overdue for this region. The second site will be the Freeport site, where we'll have a renovated and rehabilitated site at Freeport, which will serve the needs of the community going forward. And finally, there'll be the repurposing and renewal of the Midtown Grand River site, which will be designated as an ambulatory and urgent care clinic. And so it will be through these 3 sites that we'll be able to renew the infrastructure in Waterloo Region. And what I will also say is that the planning departments from all municipalities and the region have been actively engaged in our plan. So, oh, thank you.
No one told you.
I know, but thank you very much. So, what does the future of care look like for our community? Well, it is a unique opportunity. This project will provide benefits to our hospitals, our community, and our province. What are we proposing? St. Mary's and Grand River are proposing one master plan that will voluntarily serve the community to share space across all 3 sites, creating a more integrated patient experience, and to continue to reduce duplication of effort and leverage the efficiency of resources, which all 3 hospitals have been doing on an ongoing basis for many, many years. This is a unique opportunity to bring innovation, technology, and education partners into the fold to create the hospital of the future. This is an opportunity to create a pipeline of healthcare providers through partnerships, again, with our excellent post-secondary school, post-education institutions and our community. And most importantly, it's going to create a state-of-the-art hospital that will continue to attract global talent and business to Waterloo Region. So I'm now going to turn it over to Mark, or to Ron, who's going to speak to where we are today in the process. Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I don't think I could live up to Mark's standard, so thanks for correcting that. As Tim said, this has been a really exciting project to be working on. As you can see on the scale, there's a couple things that I would point out on the timeline. One, we've been working on this all through the pandemic. Well, why did we do that? Because that's how much this community, this region, needs this project to actually happen. And we also know how long they typically take in this province, which is somewhere between 10 and 15 years. The average is actually just north of 12 years to make these types of projects come to reality. So we've been working hard at trying to accelerate that timeline as much as possible. In May of last year, submitted our, what is referred to as your stage 1.2 proposal, which is what is it that you want to do anyways? And so we made that submission. We've been going back and forth with the ministry now 3 times, I think, on answering questions, continuing to advocate for approval of that 1.2 submission so we can move to the next phase, but not waiting for that approval. We're doing some work to prepare for it so we can accelerate the next phase as well. We've been able to host both the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Health here since making our submission. We've launched our website, Building the Future of Care Together. I would point you and everybody who is watching this to that website to get continuous updates on the project. The other thing that we're quite proud of is in both 2022 and in 2023, our project has been cited in the provincial budget. This last budget, we're actually the first project cited under new infrastructure for hospitals. So that bodes well, but that's not a commitment. And so we continue to move this project ahead and advocate as strongly as possible to make sure things are in place. And where we are now, we have just launched our site selection process for that new acute care facility. And we are excited about that. There will be more communication coming out about that in the next week or two, which points to more community engagement around getting input to the process, some of the criteria that we would use in selecting that site. And the selection committee that's been asked to take on that work will then make a recommendation to a joint board committee referred to as the BFCT committee, made up of all local people. And then they make their recommendation to the 2 boards. So all told, there's probably north of 30, 35 people from the 2 boards in BFCT that live right here in this community making that ultimate decision. The other thing that we'll be working on is getting the ministry to approval of 1.2. The 2 hospitals are also engaging in a process of visioning what healthcare will be like a decade from now. How are we going to be delivering healthcare a decade from now? And we're engaging our community, the innovation community, to help us as part of that process as well, including our friends at Google and at Communitech and others at University of Waterloo and McMaster University. Those are all great partners for us, for all 3 hospitals, and are part of this for helping us. And our ongoing partnership with our municipal partners to ensure that what we build and what we envision is aligned with the future of this region and the communities that are served by our organizations. So you will see us talk about world-class. That's because we're very clear that is the vision of the region. And we're also very clear, as Tim was saying, a strong healthcare system supports all of the economic growth and everything else that we want to do as a region, and that's why we're moving in that direction. So at that point, I will turn it over to Patrick.
So as Tim called it, the phase 1, I just thought I'd take a few minutes to say, well, where are we with phase 1? By the fall of 2024, we'll have a completely rebuilt 150,000 square foot patient care facility that will open and will complement the 240,000 square feet that we opened in 2020. Almost everything a patient touches at Cambridge Memorial is new. The laboratory diagnostic imaging, endoscopy, operating rooms, 3 new inpatient units in this wing, and at the end of 2024, every single inpatient unit at CMH will be new. And most of our beds will be single occupancy beds. Our number of permanent beds moves from 178 to 198, which brings us to our strategic plan and where we're going as an organization. We needed a roadmap and a path going forward in terms of where our organization needs to be. And based on our 5 pillars, we aim to care for the needs of our community, ensure that we meet health equity needs, partnership with our community, provide community health care, joy and work for our staff, and achieve financial sustainability. Our plan was not done in a vacuum. We had over 1,500 people give input to our plan from our community partners, our cultural groups, our general public, our staff physicians and volunteers. And it made us change our vision in terms as an organization, the goal to create healthier communities together. So not speaking to just being a great hospital, but how we work within our community to create a great community. We've developed 19 plans associated and are implementing those associated with our strategic plan. But I just wanted to focus and highlight our clinical services plan today, and really just draw attention to a couple of the things that we see on the horizon for us. One example that we opened recently was our regional liver health center, which was open to address the long wait times that patients have for liver specialists, up to 2 years for some patients. Looking forward, we are anxious to offer a transgender health program and introduce dialysis in partnership with Grand River Hospital. We want to expand our mental health services as seen by a recent pilot project that we did with our Ontario Health team to divert non-emergency care from our emergency department to a community-based mental health clinic. While our pilot only ran for 6 weeks, we were able to offer care to 123 individuals over 350 times, and we're in the process of evaluating the data from that pilot. And our hope is through our OHT, we'll be able to make a case for funding that and offering a diversion for EMS as well as a rapid access to a community-based clinic. But we need to keep our eye to the future in terms of, we talked about phase 1, phase 2. Well, what about CMH and its long-term future? Well, for us, our master plan is nearly 10 years old, and we need to update that and future-proof it based on the changing healthcare environment. So we have work underway on the early stages around our master plan that will go forward to our board in 2024. We've been asked if construction is on the horizon, as our previous plan called for the destruction of our Wing C and a new wing in its place. And the quick answer is not at all. Let's look at the data, work with our community, work with our partner hospitals, and more to come. We're a long way off from a new Wing C. We've got to get this phase finished right now and see what the future has. And I'll pass it over to Tim for closing comments.
Thank you, Patrick. So, how can we work together with our community, our colleagues, our friends at the center of everything we do? First, we'd like your continued support for the redevelopment projects that are ongoing, and as we look out, that we need for this community in the future. Our one ask is that you establish the Grand River and St. Mary's General Hospital Joint Redevelopment Project, the Building the Future of Care Together project, as a top priority in the region, the top priority. And second, we'd like your continued support and efforts on recruitment and retention of healthcare workers and professionals to this region. Let's explore opportunities for enhanced partnership to enhance the healthcare our community deserves. And so with that, I'll ask Ron and I'll ask Patrick to join me, and we'll open the floor to questions.
Thanks very much. Now, a quick question, gentlemen. Going back about 20 years, when the hospitals all started out at the same starting line for reconstruction and so on, the region of Waterloo donated through capital funding a significant amount of money to each of the hospital proportionally on the populations. Are you looking to that kind of support in the future of the new buildings that you're looking at?
I think it's reasonable to expect we will be looking for financial support from the region. What that looks like, we haven't even started that work.
Okay, a second question is, if I may, and I'll be very quick. The foundations at the hospital raise money for all the equipment in the hospitals. How is that going? Are they falling short? Or do you need more support for each of the hospitals to maintain the level of, you can ask for more money, but go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't speak for all three, but I think we are blessed by a supportive communities, but we're always looking for more money. We would never turn that down. I think hospitals, the foundations have posted kind of record contributions over the last couple of years, even through the COVID years. But I'll let my colleagues speak as well. But I think we're always the foundations and our community support is critical to the work we do.
I think Patrick has said it well, and I will underscore, that we could always use the support of the region and the people of this region to help make sure that the needs for equipment in the hands of our experts at the front line are there every day.
Yes, Stuart Cressman from Wilmot Township. I'm just wondering what's the size of the campus that you're looking for in terms of site selection?
So the current estimate is around 60 acres is what we would need as a minimum for that campus. I say that the current estimate is because we are still having discussions with the Ministry of Health about whether or not they would actually allow us to go up instead of out. Typically, the standard is you have to be able to double your footprint on whatever property you move into.
I have a comment and then a question. This is Chantal, Regional Councillor representing Waterloo. First of all, I want to say thank you. I have been privileged from an employment perspective, from a family member perspective, and from a direct patient perspective to receive care at all three major hospitals. Most recently, I was recovering from COVID at St. Mary's, and as crappy as it is to recover from COVID, I'm glad that I was there to do that. I'm ashamed to say that this is the first time I'm hearing of the multi-site project that we're working towards, and my question might be a little premature, but if you could speak to it, that would be great. I'm wondering if this is instead of or in addition to the prospect of a new hospital, specifically in the city of Waterloo.
So the site selection process that's just kicked off. This will be, it's an independent assessment. It's an independent team provided with the inputs from the BFCT committee and the boards of both St. Mary's and Grand River. They will independently assess and evaluate sites across the region. And ultimately, they will come back with recommendations on potential sites that meet the minimum criteria. And then we're looking to make a decision on that ultimate site by the end of this year, hopefully. Okay? You're welcome.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. It's Dorothy McCabe, Mayor of Waterloo. I forgot to introduce myself last time, and I did not ask Chantal to ask that question, I promise, because I think it's really important that we stay out of this kind of, and we just pick with the best site for the broader community. My question though is about, I really appreciate you being here today and explaining the redevelopment projects and that. I'm just wondering if you could talk a bit about the community part of the wellness and healthcare and what, like, we're all making decisions in our different municipalities about things like that can improve people's physical health, their mental health, their overall wellness. But I'm also just wondering if you could talk a bit about that and how we can contribute, but also, just broadly, there's a lot of local organizations that also provide some way, shape, or form medical or clinical care, and how you envision, when we do have this new dream realized, how you envision better connecting them to the overall healthcare service. Thanks.
Sure. Why don't I just start with a story that we, yesterday we celebrated 2 years of our Ontario Health Team in Cambridge and North Dumfries, and Sarah Escobar, who's one of our community outreach workers, talked about our community mental health and addiction clinics, the pilot I mentioned in my presentation. And she talked about how, as providers of 9 service providers coming together to understand each other and work together to be able to support the community as a whole and get to understand what the community needed, collaborate together, bring down the barriers to access. That's the goal of what we're working with in our Ontario Health Teams. So one in Cambridge, North Dumfries, active one in KW4, and to the end, that's the venue to accomplish that. And I think we're seeing strides in it. They're early days in terms of the work of it, but through COVID and the work that we did at both of the Ontario Health Teams in terms of making sure care was provided. Cambridge Memorial took over a long-term care facility, so did our colleagues for it. We made sure that the care was seamless where it needed to be. We just deployed staff and supplies out to it. We saw kind of a different way of operating. I know you're speaking kind of more maybe on the health and the wellness side of it, but it's that system working together, and it's not just the healthcare system, it's the social services system as well for it. So community support Meals and Wheels connection, community support connection as part of that, all of that kind of working together to look at a new way that we're providing care. I'll let Ron speak about KW.
Yeah, I think I'll try and focus on the first part of your question. How can the townships and municipalities, step in? I would say it is largely around the social determinants of health, because they are the drivers of the demand on healthcare. So whether that's affordable housing, being able to get good quality food that's affordable, exercise. Looking at those social determinants of health. And I know both OHTs haven't approached this just from a pure health standpoint. They've approached it from a pure healthcare standpoint. We've approached it from a health standpoint. And you saw that in the vision statements of the 3 organizations. We're not just focused on healthcare, we're focused on the health and well-being of the community. So we see ourselves as active partners in that. But if there's a leadership role that the region and the municipalities can play, it is definitely around the social determinants of health.
Thank you. In the near future, our health innovation arena will be open and functioning and innovating. Just wonder your comments on the excitement of that and the partnering that this organization will do with them.
Go for it. So, I spoke about innovation in my comments a little earlier. One of the things that I didn't share is through the pandemic, Patrick, the president of the St. Mary's General Hospital, and myself met every week with the innovation sector. And part of that discussion was, here's the things that are challenging for us right now, and our friends in the innovation and the tech sector helped us with solutions. So that's actually helped to build a really positive relationship that has continued post-pandemic to the point where we just finished a project, the first phase of a project that was focused on identifying the top 10 frustrations of our frontline providers, and working now with Communitech as a lead and the tech sector on coming to the innovators to say, these are our top problems, help solve for those, as opposed to, here's a solution, help me find a problem. We're trying to change that. And I think all 3 hospitals have also worked with the local innovation community to bring certain technologies to market. And that's going to continue. I'd be surprised if you don't see us as active partners with that innovation arena.
You guys are good? Thanks. Two questions. One on the issue of the hospital, and one sort of building on Dave's question. back a number of years ago, there was the notion of before Cambridge undertook their work, there was a notion of building a single supersized hospital. And obviously, things moved on. Cambridge went and did the needed work that happened there, and now we're at the point of talking around something impacting the north to serve the whole area. Has there been any thought or openness around the idea of, instead of 3 locations, and there's lots of merit to that, but actually considering options that might involve 1 location? So that's part 1 of the question. And part 2 of the part 2 of the question has to do with the issue of innovation and so on. One of the things that we often get asked, and I know you folks have an answer to this, as does people like the president of U of W and so on, but people say, well, we need a teaching hospital like they have in Hamilton, Toronto, or London here, because how can we have innovation without that? And I know our approach is very different, but I think it would be beneficial for everyone to hear that so they understand the answer, because it's one that surprisingly actually comes up quite a bit.
Take the second question, I'll take the first. Sure. Okay. So maybe on the first question, in terms of one side, I think that was in the early 90s, and I'd say that boat has sailed, and I think appropriately, in the sense that if we think about the community size, as we think about the region as a whole, in terms of travel to an emergency department, et cetera, I don't think it's well served. We've also just completed a $187 million investment in Cambridge in order to support the needs within Cambridge, and I think that opportunity to have your baby there, go to an emergency department, have your hips and knees done, have your rehab care for it, have your cancer treatment for that. We want to have that care as close to home as possible. So I think on that early days, in terms of looking at that, I've been here a long time, when the Health Services Restructuring Commission came around in 1995, that was looking, they deliberately said 3 sites, continue the work around that, and build. And while we took a little bit longer to get there, we're the final phase of that, and now the next phase, as we've talked about, evolving. I'll let you add to that, or add to the other question.
Mayor Verbana, can you remind me the specific of the second question again, please?
Yeah, the second part was specifically on the issue of, if we're going to be building new and looking forward, like what we need is a teaching hospital, because that's key around the innovation piece. And I know that the group of you, as well as the university president, others have a very good reason why we don't need to go that way. But I think it's important that everyone understands it, because it's a question that comes up often.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right. I get it frequently as well. And the answer that I would give to it is the 3 hospitals actually already do a significant amount of teaching, whether it's physicians, nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, go down the list. We are probably, I know for McMaster, we are the largest teaching site outside of Hamilton right now. So we do a lot of medical education already. What we also know is one of the sweet spots that we enjoy is being large community hospitals that teach. So if you want to teach as a clinician, you can do that here. If you don't want to teach and you don't want to do research, you can do that here. And we have very strong partnerships with UW, with McMaster, with the innovation sector, which are only going to grow, that allow us to actually accelerate innovation, I would say at a faster pace than you can actually do in an academic health sciences center. And there is a misperception about, well, if you're an academic health sciences center, you're in a better financial position. I would point people to the results of hospitals across the province. You will see a much different picture than that belief.
Thanks for that, and I think that is really important for folks to understand, because it's our overall ecosystem and our level of collaboration, and not having the constraints, I'll say, that an academic institution type of teaching hospital often has, that actually will allow our ecosystem to flourish going forward, and why things like the health innovation arena can be successful.
Yeah, and thanks for asking the question. The final thing I'd say on it is What we're looking at our new development around BFCT to be focused on is being the province's first innovation health sciences center, as opposed to academic health sciences center.
Thank you so much. Julie Wright, Ward 7 in Uptown Waterloo. So just over that Twin City border from Grand River Hospital. I was born in Grand River Hospital. I had a baby in Grand River Hospital. So I am fairly familiar with Grand River Hospital. My question actually builds on what Barry was talking about. And part of this equation is also labor, not maternity labor, but the supply of medical professionals for our hospital system and our healthcare system as a region. So many of those healthcare workers are women, and I'm just wondering whether you're taking a gender-based analysis approach to this project in order to think about how women stay in healthcare for the duration of their careers, because right now we're really facing a perfect storm with all the pressures from the pandemic.
Well, I think you're focusing on the new build particularly, was it? Yeah, so I think it's...
And sorry, I struggle with hearing, so I think the question was, how are you going to keep healthcare providers engaged and keep them in healthcare?
Specifically women, yeah.
Women? Yeah. Oh, okay. Which is the largest, the largest proportion of our workforce. And, we always have more that we can do. We think we're doing some good things now. We realize we have some challenges because we have, collective agreements as well. One of the things that I hear often is better scheduling. How does my schedule fit around it? For those who don't work at the front lines, how do you give those options of having a more virtual type of work experience? So we do some of that already. And listening to the input that we get from our frontline teams, I think is going to be the best thing for us to do. One of the things that we struggle with now is keeping experienced frontline providers engaged and continuing to work. So we, and I think all three hospitals, are just about to launch some initiatives supported by government to help them stay on as mentors for new staff. It's not something that I can stand here and say we have all the solutions for it, but it is an area that we're actually quite focused on as we go forward.
And so just as a quick clarification too, what I'm wondering about is in the project planning going forward, whether you're using gender-based analysis to help inform that approach to the community's healthcare needs and its labor supply.
Yeah, so we definitely have, right now we have different maps that tell us where people are coming from right now to access our services. So that is all going into the process of site selection. And, you have to lay over that, where is the future growth going to happen as well?
And maybe just as we get the hook, is just so 10 of our 12 board members are women. Most of our medical advisory committee, the most senior physicians in the hospital, the vast majority are women leaders within our organization. So I think we live and breathe it each day. We've created breastfeeding rooms within it for staff to be able to do it, to support women. It's 80%, I think, of our workforce is women. So I think day in and day out is how do we be able to support it? It's a critical component, but it's a fantastic question. There is more work to do, as Rob mentioned.
So please join me in thanking Ron and Patrick and Tim. I do apologize because I know Mark assured me that while he couldn't be here in person, he was going to be watching online, so we will have to give him a quiz. And there are people joining us virtually, and CAO Bruce Lochner is one of them. He was out of town at a meeting that he couldn't miss, but I think you've asked, that last question was a really important one, and I would just caution all of us that whether we're talking about Tony's realm of the economic proposition or Michelle's, it's really important to talk about quality, accessible childcare, because that impacts who gets attracted to our community, and it's a major thing that I think needs to continue to be framed in that economic conversation of why we need to continue to advocate for it. I'd now like to invite Connie McDonald, Chief Communications and Strategy Officer, Region of Waterloo, to the podium for a brief update on 2023 to 2027 strategic plan and how it relates to all 8 municipalities. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you so much, Chair Redmond, and how great is it to see so many familiar faces in person here today. Again, for anyone I haven't had the chance to meet, I'm Connie McDonald, and I'm the Chief Strategy and Communications Officer here at the Region of Waterloo, which means I have the great privilege of leading a small but mighty team that is working to support Regional Council in setting their vision for the future and strategic priorities over the next 4 years. As elected representatives of all the residents that we collectively serve, I'm so grateful and excited to have this chance to share and hear from you as we build this plan. I'm going to try to remember to do these. So why are we here today? 3 brief things. One is to share a little bit about the strategic planning work that's been completed to date. The second is to share back some of the key trends that we've heard through a lot of the data analysis and community engagement that's already been conducted to inform the plan. And last and importantly is to gather input on alignment with area municipalities as we build the plan. This conversation feels more important than ever, and I want to thank all of the speakers before me today because I think they laid a really solid foundation of some of the things that we're all considering as we build and plan for the future. You know, a key driver in our conversations on the region's strategic plan is the reality that we're moving into this time of incredible growth. You've heard this before and a lot from the partners today, and I'm sure you're hearing this from many in the community as you meet with different agencies who are starting to struggle to meet the needs of a growing community. Growing is an exciting time. It opens doors and it creates possibilities, but it also places great pressure on services and poses challenging decisions when priorities are at odds with one another. How do we maintain and improve service levels and balance the realities of inflation, cost increases, and resource shortages? How do we balance growth with affordability? How do we attract talent and differentiate ourselves from our competition? We talked a lot today about talent attraction and retention. How do we create an environment for attainable housing? And how do we expand all of the public services that go along with that? These are just some of the critical conversations and critical questions, and conversations like the one we're having today are essential to our plan for the future. One of the most important drivers of the creation of the plan has been engagement and centering and elevating the voices of communities in its development. We've not started from scratch. There's been so many great community conversations recently that have provided insights and inputs into the plan. Things such as the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, the Youth Impact Survey from the Children and Youth Planning Table, the Wellbeing Waterloo Region Survey, the Immigration Partnership Survey, and many more. And we're certainly not reinventing the wheel there and asking the same questions of community again and again, but really utilizing all of that data together to create an informed picture and to build that plan for the future. We've also been working closely alongside our reconciliation and equity, diversity, and inclusion team to identify gaps in our engagement and to build relationships and elevate the voices of those traditionally unheard in the development of the strategic plan. You may have seen the team out at events in your community. There's lots more to come, and we love invites, so please share. We'd love to come out. The engagement phase is definitely still active. This is our timeline, and we're right in the middle of the process with an expected completion in August. And I'm going to take like a really deep breath here because there's a lot of work that needs to be completed between now and when we finalize the strategic plan in August. But it's okay because thankfully we have great help. To help us along in the process, we've hired Heather and Jessica from Creative Futures. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Jessica from Creative Futures, who's going to share a little bit more about what they've learned in our planning process to date. And Jessica is virtual.
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Connie. What a privilege it is to share some of the work we've been doing. So I'm from Creative Futures. Heather Resick and myself, we work with municipalities, hospitals, not-for-profit organizations, and universities to help them understand their future and what they need to plan for using applied strategic foresight. So that's what we've been doing exactly with the region of Waterloo. So the work we've done is to dive in and help understand and explore what the region could look like in 2050, using some of the evidence and research that's available today that we can observe today and turn that into some understanding of where we want to be in the future. In doing so, we hope to create a strategic plan that doesn't only contend with the dramatic changes that are happening now, some of the key challenges happening now, but also anticipate some of the challenges and opportunities on the horizon, and how we can ensure that the strategic priorities that we focus on over the next few years really help propel us towards the future. So this is a little bit of our approach that we've been used. We've used an applied strategic foresight framework to start off by understanding what are the changes that we can observe today, what are those key trends, which Heather will talk about in a moment, that look at the social, political, environmental, economic changes that are happening today that will shape in some way the future of the region in 2050. And then we did use these to identify a few different possible scenarios that could unfold to help us then identify some future-focused strategic priorities as part of the process. So as Connie mentioned, there's been lots of great engagement activities that have helped inform this work. I think the next slide. There we go. Just to give you a sense, there's been thousands who have participated in this work, including regional council workshops, some respondents to a mini survey. We've run workshops with youth, with broader community, with staff. We've also had an online survey in the field specific to this work, as well as interactive map, a data community profile, lots of different inputs that have really helped inform this work and to get a better picture of what 2050 might look like. And so to break that down a bit more, so this is a list of some of the key plans that we use to really help us understand what are the range of opportunities and disruptions that will really shape Waterloo region in 2050. So we have supplemented some of these great plans and surveys that have been done with additional futures research that Heather and I have done, as well as futures workshops with a variety of teams to help us really understand what are the different possibilities. So through that work, we identified over 30 different changes that have the potential to significantly impact the future of the region, and then worked with the regional council to identify what 12 key trends that we really need to pay attention to and will really help inform where we take this strategic plan next. And with that, I think we can talk about over to Heather Resick.
Great. So I wanted to share a little bit about these trends because they're trends that are important for the entire region to pay attention to and likely beyond the region. And Connie mentioned the first one already in terms of population boom. So I'm sure you are all aware the population in Ontario broadly is expected to grow quite significantly over the next 20 to 25 years, up by over 40%. And that will definitely impact the region of Waterloo as well. And possibly could change really the density and demographics of the region quite significantly over the next 25 years. So this is one that we are closely paying attention to as we identify strategic priorities as part of this work. The next one here is called economically divided. Again, likely this isn't a surprise to you. The cost of living, inflation has all been going up quite significantly over the last number of years. And we're seeing working class people access food banks now. There's a growing number of older women who are living in poverty, and people are actually carrying mortgages well into their older age and in retirement. And so for this one, when we think about 25 years into the future, it's important to pay attention to because there might be even more residents that are living closer to the poverty line. But at the same time, there's also really a growth in the luxury market happening at the same time. So there could be quite a growing division in terms of the economics of the residents in the region. The third one here is families evolve. So there are a number of changes happening right now that really tell us that the future of families might look quite different. There are examples of multi-generational homes, there's polyfamily, there's intentional communities being created, as well as a decline in the fertility rate, with the lowest rate we've seen in 2020. So looking to the future 25 years, it's really important to think about the possible diversity of families that might exist in the region and planning for the diversity of housing that actually might correspond with that demand over time. The fourth one here is disrupted municipal finances. I'm sure you all have been talking about this quite a bit over the last few months in terms of the changes to the Bill 23, as well as impacts from COVID-19. Many Ontario municipalities are facing significant budget constraints, and this is something obviously you are all thinking about right now. But if we look to 25 years in the future, thinking about how this might change the services that are provided, how this might change revenue tools that are explored as well. The fifth one here is AI government. And I'm sure, again, that you are all paying attention to the developments happening in AI. There are huge investments being made by private sector businesses to develop AI. ChatGPT, there was massive adoption of that tool within a very short period of time, faster than any other tool in the past that's been released. And so looking 25 years in the future, this might impact government in more significant ways. Perhaps there'll be an expectation to use AI in terms of government services, in terms of resident expectations, in terms of data-driven approaches to making decisions. And then the last one on the left-hand side is climate first leadership. There's a ton that you likely already know in terms of the climate crisis and what might be expected in 2050. As well, a number of weeks ago, we all, stayed inside because of smoke days, and this likely continuing as we look to the future. But as well, there are a number of young people today that are really challenging and asking for a climate first approach and a more focus on the climate crisis. And so as we look 25 years in the future, those people that are youth today might actually be government leaders in the future. So perhaps there will be even more focus on a climate first decision-making approach to actually everything that we do in the future. So if we go to the right-hand slide, Truth and Reconciliation, obviously this got a lot of attention in 2015 with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and even more recently to everything that has happened with the residential school system and bringing to light everything that has happened in the past. So this is going to continue and could possibly restructure the stewardship and governance of land in Canada as we continue to acknowledge the rights of Indigenous communities and the historic ties to the land that we're on today. Democracy under pressure. There has been a ton of political polarization rising in Canada, in the US, and globally. We've seen this, it tends to be less pervasive in Canada, but there is a declining trust in government that we've seen here. And so when we look to 25 years from now, there may be even greater decline in trust in government, as well as challenges to democracy and democratic institutions. So this is something important to pay attention to in terms of continuing to develop trust and build trust with residents and communities. Food system transformation. This is related to climate shocks, might change agricultural production in the region. There's been global supply chain disruptions and really changing food preferences. So this might significantly transform the food system when we think 25 years from now. This has also come out as a really important theme in all of our work to date with residents so far. And then the housing crisis, again, you are all well aware of this one. Canada has some of the highest housing prices in the G7 and OECD, and there's continuing to be a housing affordability challenge for many residents in Canada. So if this continues, this might be an even greater challenge for cities and townships in terms of trying to figure out ways to provide housing solutions for residents. And then inclusion and belonging. Obviously, Canada is known for being such a multicultural society, and there are commitments to even greater immigration rates to the country, and this will become extremely important as we think about the growth of the region. But as well, there's been actually an increase in hate crimes and potentially not welcoming new members to the community. So this one is really about thinking about how to create more equity and social justice in the region, how to really create strong community connection, and being quite aware of how to continuously do that as we look to the future. And the last one is mental health emergency. So I'm sure you all know, but Canadians' mental health have gone down over the last number of years, and this continues to be a challenge for many folks related to burnout, technology use, growing loneliness, and social isolation. So this is something that we feel is important to pay attention to as we look 25 years into the future. So these aren't all of the changes happening right now in Waterloo Region, but as Jessica mentioned, these are the ones that came to the top in terms of things that we really need to pay attention to, think about the different ways that they could change over the next 25 years, so that in response, the strategic priorities for the region of Waterloo could respond to these in some way as we look to the future. But I'm going to turn it over to Jenny now to talk about the next element.
Thank you, Jessica and Heather, for that really thorough overview of the process and themes that we're hearing from folks throughout this process. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenny Smith, and I'm the Director for Corporate Strategy and Performance at the region of Waterloo. One thing that is so important to this process is working collaboratively as municipalities. Each area municipality is at a different stage of their strategic planning process, and in many ways, strategic planning is an ongoing activity. The world changes so quickly now that you've always got to be looking at what's on the horizon to see what's coming so you can get ahead of it. So myself and other strategic planning staff in your communities have started to meet together, and we're a growing group. And we try really hard to support one another, share data, and explore how we can align our efforts. This helps us learn, and it helps us learn much faster. This slide, the one that's up here, is an overview of some of the things that we're talking about across Waterloo Region. These themes are found by looking at trends in the data, and they're things that communities, residents, businesses, and organizations are talking about. Many of these themes are common, opportunities, challenges, and community needs, but they show themselves very differently across every community, all of which are unique. And that really brings us to the engagement part of our session. So we really want to hear from you now about the things that you're seeing and the things that you're hearing from your communities. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Van Verleysen, who's our manager for strategy and strategic initiatives, who's going to kick off a conversation with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny, and hello, everyone. I'm actually going to ask Erin if she can flip over to our Menti meter slide. Great. So I'm really happy to be here today and facilitate, what I think is the most fun part of this presentation. So we will be using Mentimeter, which is an online tool for those that want to participate to capture your thoughts on 3 questions. And for those that are like me, you might need a little bit more time to absorb and think about things a little bit more. That's okay. We'll be leaving this up after the meeting, so you can come back to them later. And for those that may not have a device, and I'll walk through the procedure soon, but if you want to just raise your hand, we can come around and take your responses that way as well. We really want to encourage a lot of participation. So if you could please, you can use your phones, you can go to your laptop, go to your browser. I see a few folks, taking advantage of the QR code. But if you want to open up your browser, type in www.menti.com. It'll take you to a screen, and then you can punch in the code 594284. So if you do that, it'll take you to kind of like the main screen, and there's a thumbs up. Okay, I'll just give a couple seconds more. Okay. If you need help, we have folks that can roam around and help you out. Just raise your hand. Okay. Great. So it looks like we have a number of folks that have joined, which is perfect. I see lots of thumbs up. So I think we'll move on to our first question. So from what you've heard today, so are there any key themes or trends that you feel are missing? Oh. So I see the cause of the inequity. That's a good one. Accessibility for people with and without disabilities. Great. Connecting all of this to the social determinants of health, gender equity, infrastructure deficit. What mechanisms are stalling action on climate, namely financial and financial solutions? The opposite of the growth scenario, young people and job seekers leaving for more progressive communities. Very interesting. Employment and economic development. Great. Addiction supports. Perfect. Homelessness. So there's media trends fueling hate and gender-based violence and transphobia, impacts of potential municipal reform. These are all wonderful. Please feel free to continue to add on. Like I said, we'll leave this open as well, but I do want to move us to our second question. So for our second question, where do you see opportunities for better alignment around shared priorities and/or outcomes? So just thinking about the presentation today, about all the work that's being done. So health in all policies. Better data and collaboration, absolutely. And I should have looked around to see if you raise your hand, we can also come around and take your answers that way as well. Disaggregated data. More meetings that combine city and regional councilors, service delivery, people moving away from not my lane attitudes. Very good. Rural transit opportunities, recreational facilities, parks and trails, fire service. I see lots of great ideas. Keep them coming. Investment in prevention and financial case, I can't read that. Is it case format? For it. Sorry about that. Rotational discussion of improved governance model, removal of inefficiencies. That's wonderful. Okay. Ooh, look, there's more. Systems thinking, convention center, becoming an events region, community data, concierge services beyond indices and general reports. More focus on local governments, greater advocacy to provincial and federal governments. That's perfect. So again, we'll keep that open for you to come back to, but I do want to move us to our third and last question, which is how might we continue to align and collaborate better? So it's okay if you thought you answered it in the last question, you can answer it here again. Okay, same goals amongst all the municipalities. Mhm.
Who trumps who? Who trumps who in that discussion?
Ah.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Any other comments? More meetings that combine regional and area municipal councilors. Yep. I think I saw that one, the last one. Recognizing the different needs and desires of each community rather than trying to push towards one that may not represent every community. Scale climate solutions for better financial outcomes. Joint strategic planning, pinpointing shared priorities. I like that one. These are all great. Okay. Meeting of cross-boundary counselors, a cluster approach. Review of service provision and determine if public sector is the best to deliver various programs, make it easier to do so. Contribute to the facilities in each municipality that all use, like Rim Park, Kitchener auditoriums, etc. Address procurement barriers that send money out of the area. These are all great. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, please come back to this, and we will be incorporating all of your feedback, and we'll continue to align and coordinate our work. So with that, I want to pass it over to Connie.
Thank you so much for that. And we do also have an online survey that gets more into the content of the plan in terms of themes and focus areas. So I think today was a great opportunity to talk about the vision in the future, the challenges that we're all facing together, and how we can face them together and align our efforts through our planning. Again, please invite us out. We love talking within communities and are really working as hard as we can to make sure that all voices are heard as we develop the plan. In terms of next steps, we've still got a lot of heavy lifting to do as we sort through all of the engagement data, talk about the themes that have surfaced, and work with regional council to set the strategic priorities for the next number of years. But again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been really insightful and really appreciated. Thank you.
So thank you, Connie, Jenny, and Van, and our two consultants. That was great, and it's always fun to have something interactive like that. It looks like everybody had sort of cottoned on to that. I want to thank you all for coming today. I think meeting in person is really key, and I know that there are people that were not able to be here, so they're joining us virtually, and they don't get any of the cookies you guys got, just telling you. Our next All Councils meeting is scheduled for December the 15th, 2023. And before we adjourn, just a quick note that housing staff will be outside in the foyer with information regarding the plan to end chronic homelessness and how you and your residents can get involved in this community plan. So again, thank you all for coming. It's been a great afternoon, and this concludes our All Councils meeting. Take care.